Good afternoon, Oak Grove. Happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's installment of our Midweek Update series here on the church's YouTube channel, where I just populate into your device in the middle of the week to say hello and to try to keep the church on our mind for the remaining days of the week that we're not in worship on Sunday morning, because that is such an important thing for us to do. So thank you for taking a few minutes to join me here. What are we going to talk about today? Last week, I had hoped to raise up some recent property victories around here, and give credit for those. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk obviously happened, and it was something we had to discuss. And we're going to continue to talk a little bit about the state of the nation and the state of our culture today a little bit. But I also want to make sure I take time to raise up those things that are being accomplished. Most of you now have already seen the new shed that is in our backyard. So I'm not, last week, if Charlie Kirk's murder had not happened, I had intended to take the phone out into the backyard and show you the shed for the first time. Well, that's a little unnecessary at this point now, because most of you were here on Sunday and you've seen it now. But we have a brand new shed in the backyard to replace the old rusted out shed that was over on the neighbor's side of the property, not the pavilion side of the property. And Ken Gehring did a good bit of the work, but that's also not to fail to give credit to the fact that the whole property team also did a lot of work. Bill Bennett, of course, as he always does, was there to provide a lot of the work to move the stuff out of the old shed and into the new shed. And we had a property day where a number of individuals were out there to help us lay the foundation, including a couple of folks that I know don't usually like to receive credit. They tell me, Pastor, don't credit me for anything. So those guys know who they are. But it was an effort that took weeks of preparation of the pad. We had to move all the stuff out of the old shed. We had to tear down the old shed. We had to dispose of the old shed. And then we had to prepare the concrete pad for the new shed. Then the new shed was delivered. That was easy for us because the manufacturer only had to drop it off. And it was really funny that it was supposed to be here on an afternoon, and then the truck apparently got delayed with other deliveries, and it got stuck in traffic. The shed actually ended up getting delivered at about 8:45 at night in the pitch black. The truck driver got here, and I thought, wow, better you than me, dude. He had a little forklift-like device that with a really bright headlights on it, that he was able to get that sucker off the back of the flatbed and get it onto our concrete bed. Whoo, boy, better him than me doing that in the dark, but he got it done, and it looks real nice. So not only is it not an eyesore anymore, and you notice it's not a coincidence, it is painted to look like a little Oak Grove. It's white with black trim, just like the church. And so not only does it look like a lot less of an eyesore, but it also has considerably more storage inside. And so we have a lot more place to store our fall festival supplies and outdoor youth supplies. And so I just want to lift that up. I was going to show it in the video if I had done it last week. Not really necessary now, but thank you so much to all of the guys on property that made that happen. So I wanted to lift up that win, and I've got another bit of news to announce to you about another improvement here at the building, which is in very close proximity to me, but I'm going to hang on to it till the end of the video. I always want to make sure that I have at least some devotional component to these videos. So one of the appointed daily lectionary readings for today is Psalm 79. And the daily lectionary actually only appoints verses 1 through 10, but I'm going to read you the whole thing that goes through verse 13. Psalm 79, which was written after the Israelites had gone into exile, and it was not written by King David, as many people assume many of the Psalms are written by David. This was long after David, when the Israelites were in exile. It reads, O God, the nations have come into your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have laid Jerusalem in ruins. They have given the bodies of your servants to the birds of the air for food, the flesh of your faithful to the wild animals of the earth. They have poured out their blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there was no one to bury them. We have become a taunt to our neighbors, mocked and derided by those around us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Will your jealous wrath burn like fire? Pour out your anger on the nations that do not know you, and on the kingdoms that do not call on your name. For they have devoured Jacob and laid waste his habitation. Do not remember against us the iniquities of our ancestors. Let your compassion come speedily to meet us, for we are brought very low. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name. Deliver us and forgive our sins for your name's sake. Why should the nations say, "Where is their God?" Let the avenging of the outpoured blood of your servants be known among the nations before our eyes. Let the groans of the prisoners come before you, according to your great power. Preserve those doomed to die. Return sevenfold into the bosom of our neighbors the taunts with which they taunted you, O Lord. Then we, your people, the flock of your pasture, will give thanks to you forever. From generation to generation, we will recount your praise. So that's a bit of a Debbie Downer of a psalm for today. But, obviously, I don't need to tell any of you who pays the slightest bit of attention to current events, who tunes into social media and who tunes into the news even occasionally, who reads the paper, who is at all familiar with public discourse and the current state of it over the last week. Boy, we thought that the toxicity level in our country couldn't get any higher. And then Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and the toxicity level somehow managed to break its own records. Now you have folks on both sides demonizing their opponents and saying hateful and vile things about those who are on the opposite side of the divide from themselves. And this is not new. We've been dealing with it for years. But boy, just in the last week now, it feels like even though we didn't think anything could get any worse, somehow it did. So that's why it's important to reconnect with some of the dark times in history for God's people and remember, as bad as we think it is, it could still be worse. The Israelites write these words of lament after they have been taken from their homeland and are living as slaves, as prisoners in a foreign nation. And as they are departing Jerusalem, they see pagans setting up false temples and desecrating the temple, desecrating God's temple, the Jewish temple, desecrating the altar, tearing down sacred objects. And can you begin to imagine how heartbroken were they? Can you begin to imagine how demoralized and defeated they felt? By design, make no mistake, their enemies intended to crush their spirit. And so, lest we think that things can't get any worse than they are today, there was a time when the Israelites wrote, "They have given the bodies of your servants to the birds of the air for food, the flesh of your faithful to the wild animals of the earth." Yes, it was a horrific thing that has been performed by cultures to their victims over the ages, that they would simply abandon victims to be eaten alive slowly by animals. And this is how grim was the situation for the people of Israel. And yet, the psalm concludes, "Then we, your people, the flock of your pasture, will give you thanks forever. From generation to generation, we will recount your praise." Even in the midst of such horror and such suffering, the Israelites did not lose hope. They did not lose their faith in Yahweh. They never stopped believing that he would save them, that he would find a way to turn it around. And the people owned up to whatever role that they may have played in the fall of Israel. They believed that God was punishing them for their sin with what had happened. Now, I've talked on this channel multiple times before about the nature of our sin and whether God punishes us with evil, and whether God is ever the originator of evil acts. And I've said many times before, I don't believe that God works that way. But the people were willing to accept the possibility that maybe they brought it on themselves. Well, I think it would be horribly, hideously wrong to suggest that God punishes us on purpose for those things in that kind of way. But I will say, I think that God does allow us to lie in the bed that we make as a people. God will let us live with the mess that we cause. If we bring bad karma on ourselves by our own sinful deeds, God will let us sit in that. And now that the hate is increasing even higher than we thought it could, God may allow us to sit in that a little bit until it breaks our heart and until it reforms us and gets us to start to really change. And it starts with the cessation of all words of hate for people on the other side. All words of hate, including the thinly veiled ones that we say in such a way that we think it makes us sound above board, or it makes it sound like our side is justified and we're trying to be really subtle and implicit about the way we do it. No, full stop. What was done to Charlie Kirk last week was wrong. And what was done, lest anybody think that I'm only defending one side, that same thing was also done to several Democratic state lawmakers in the state of Minnesota earlier this year. And I, like a schmuck, failed to have a special sermon or a special prayer for them, and I admit that failing. So what was done to them was also wrong. Somebody attempted to burn down our PA Governor Josh Shapiro's house. That was wrong. And these acts of assassination also extend to beyond the political sphere. The United Healthcare CEO that was murdered earlier this year. That was wrong. And full stop. We are not helping the situation when we sit there and try to say, yeah, it was wrong, but, no, but. It was wrong. Stop. Period. It was wrong. Then, at a later point, we begin to rebuild our relations with the other side and address the root causes of why we might think that there is even remotely a reason why these actions could be justified. But it does not help the rhetoric when we sit there and engage in our yes, but. Yes, but isn't good enough right now, sisters and brothers. So, bottom line, things have been worse. And God still came through for God's people. And so, in a world that is full of so much hatred and violence right now, it is important for us to look for good where good is appearing. And so, you know what? I have another improvement to our property here at the church to share. And it is very close by. It is right behind and above me. And I'm going to show it to you. And I think the majority of you are going to be pleased because this is something that a lot of you have been asking for a long time at Oak Grove. But I am also very much respectful and understanding of the fact that I know there's a few of you that have not been asking for it. I know there are some that are going to say, that's not my preference, Pastor. I wouldn't have asked for that. I hear you. I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I think that we can all learn to get used to the idea. I had to get used to the idea when my home congregation did this years ago. And at first, I was one of the ones that was a little, I'm not sure I like that. But eventually, I warmed up to the idea that it is something that growing churches need. It is something that modern churches, especially in this area of town, need to be relevant because all the other area churches have one. It is something that we've been trying to get going for years. And so, if you look above my shoulder up here in the sanctuary, what's this on the wall up here? That is our new television monitor. That is the new television monitor that was just installed yesterday, on which we are going to use it in the near future to begin putting our worship service up there. During the service, the bulletin will be up there, the hymns, the prayers, the readings. It's not going to be in effect by this coming Sunday. We need another week or so to get it implemented. But once we eventually get it online, we will be able to put the service up there, and then we'll be able to save on paper by printing fewer bulletins. I know that's something that some folks have been asking for a while. Geez, Pastor, we use an awful lot of paper and toner here. I hear you. So we're gonna reduce that real soon. But it also allows us to do a lot of other cool stuff with it in the future. I could put art up there that matches the theme of my sermon. We could possibly use it to play videos as part of children's programs. There's other things we can do with it. But it makes us appear more modern and more relevant when all of the other area churches in New Sewickley have them. It is something we've wanted for a while, and it is finally here. And personally, I'm tickled pink at the size of it because I think it's just the right size. It is not so big that it totally fills up your view. It doesn't obscure any of the beauty of the sanctuary, but it is big enough to be seen everywhere. And so, as we leave the door of our home every day into this world that is so full of darkness and hate and just so much negativity everywhere, we need to look for wins when we can find them, like the beautiful new shed we have outside or the beautiful new screen that we have in our sanctuary, which is going to allow us to do a lot more things that make us a modernized interpretation of the old-fashioned country church that Oak Grove has always been. So in this negative world, I really need to wrap up this video because it is the longest one I've ever made at 16 minutes. I didn't intend that. In this negative world, we have to look for the wins. We have to look for the good. We have to look for the positive. And we have to be the agent of positive change that we want to see because it starts with us. It starts with me. So I have droned on way longer than I intended to now, Oak Grove. I will see you Sunday morning. Take care, God bless, and have a wonderful rest of your week.